Let's bring in Jim Walsh. He's a senior research associate at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology's Security Studies program, an expert on international security and nuclear weapons. Jim, thanks for joining us. I want to begin with the progress we've seen between the DPRK and South Korea. A lot of negotiations that they've agreed to when it comes to Olympics, when it comes to inter-Korean military talks, family reunions. But the DPRK has crossed off the idea of talking about nuclear issues. And Trump is now saying he's open to talks with the DPRK under the right circumstances. How do you see all this playing out if the DPRK is not willing to talk about nuclear issues?
Well, I think it depends on a couple of things. I've welcomed this. I think it's good that they're talking. I think communication is important here because one of the pathways to war is mistakes, miscalculation, and communication, whether it's talking about the Olympics or talking about nuclear weapons, is still communication, still positive. But to get to your point, I think there can be conversations between South Korea and North Korea that do not involve nuclear weapons on the topics that you've discussed, and that those can proceed. But at some point after the Olympics, the question will be, will South Korea and the U.S. resume military exercises? Will the North Koreans resume missile and nuclear tests? And so we could very easily slide back into that standoff and action-reaction dynamic that we've had. I'm hoping that this will have some momentum and that maybe we will continue to pause both the testing and the exercises. But that's what we're looking at after February. There's going to be a desire to go back to both those things, and then things could quickly unravel, I'm afraid.
Well, we certainly hope that does not happen. Jim, my colleague, Callebs, has also been following this story, and he also has a question for you.
Well, Jim, let's think back to the report from the Wall Street Journal earlier that indicated that President Trump was considering some kind of preemptive strike in an effort to give Kim Jong-un, quote, a bloody nose or kick him in the shin. What does that do to this situation? And we also know that apparently his Secretary of State, Tillerson, as well as Defense Secretary Mattis, are trying to talk him down, saying, look, let's focus on the diplomatic efforts right now.
Yeah, I think, as alluded to earlier, I think the thing with the Trump administration, or Mr. Trump in particular, is every day is an adventure. I mean, you could take one position on one day, the complete opposite position on the other day. This is the person who said both that he would have a hamburger with Kim Jong-un and also called him Little Rocket Man and threatened to destroy his nation. So there's a big, wide range of possibilities. I think as to the particular report about the idea that we might bloody their nose, I certainly hope that that is an error, because in the nuclear age, you don't go around bloodying the noses of states that possess nuclear weapons. That is a recipe for war. And seems inconsistent with some of the other things that have been coming out of the White House. So I hope it's not true. It's a terrible idea. It makes no sense whatsoever. Highly dangerous, but you just don't know. On any given day, you could get anything.
Another uncertainty, Jim, is what's going to happen to the Iran nuclear agreement supported by world powers, despite President Trump calling it the worst deal ever. Now we're waiting to see if Mr. Trump effectively terminates this agreement on Friday or in the coming days. What are the implications if he does? Does this deal still have a chance when the rest of the world backs it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's going to be an announcement tomorrow. Early reporting suggests that he will keep the waivers, but that he will sanction some of the people who came off sanctions because of the nuclear deal. If he does that, then that will give Iran the right to go to the UN and to the other bodies and say, look, the U.S. is in violation of the deal. And again, you're right to say that the Europeans and all the world powers support this deal. And so if the president does this, he will be isolating the U.S., again, I'm afraid. And then the question will be, how will Iran react? Will Iran sort of set up a situation where it continues the deal on its own with Europe, with Russia, and with China, and sort of ignores the U.S.? Or will they seek an end to the deal? And then we see a real deterioration where they could be starting up centrifuges again, where all the rules and restrictions on their nuclear program come off because the deal has been violated. That's a really dark scenario. I think what the Trump administration right now They're engaged in salami tactics. They're saying, we're going to violate the deal a little bit, not a lot, but a little bit, and we dare you, Iran, to pull out. Now, I don't think that's very helpful. I don't think it's, helps with world peace and stability, but that seems to be the tactic as a way to, within the White House, compromising to keep Trump on board. His advisors are desperately trying to keep him in the agreement, and so they're making compromises around the edges to try to hold on to him.
Jim.
We'll see if that works or not.
Jim Walsh, thank you so much.